Daesh group claims responsibility for deadly bombing in the Philippines. Man shot dead after killing 4 family members. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Mohanapriya and you're watching World Today. Israel struck Gaza targets on Sunday in its war on Hamas as international concern deepened over mounting civilian deaths on the third day of fighting after a truce ended. More than 15,500 people have been killed in the besieged Palestinian territory in more than 8 weeks of combat and heavy bombardment. Of the casualties, 70% are women and children, while at least 281 healthcare workers have lost their lives. Israeli air and artillery strikes hit Gaza's northern frontier, with Israel throwing thick clouds of smoke and dust into the sky. The Israeli military said it carried out around 10,000 airstrikes since the war started. Hospitals in southern Gaza overflowed with dead and wounded, some crying out in pain. 70% of hospitals in Gaza Strip have ceased operations following heavy military action in the region. Israel's attacks in the Gaza Strip have also resulted in the partial or total destruction of 250,000 of the 400,000 housing units. The economic losses inflicted on the Gaza Strip due to the conflict reached $700 million in October. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk voiced alarm that hundreds of thousands of Gazans were being confined into ever smaller areas in the south of the territory. Meanwhile, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said it was devastating to see that the truce between Israel and Hamas had been broken. He called for another pause or ceasefire and said the abandonment of the peace process in the West Asia region was a colossal miscalculation.
We need to go back. They need to go back to that pause, humanitarian pause, ceasefire, call it as you want, so that the whole more positive processes can start again, including putting aid into Gaza to help people that are at risk of their lives. We have to go back to the peace process. The peace process has been neglected, almost ridiculed for so many years as something irrelevant.
A 7-day pause in the fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas, which had allowed the exchange of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners, collapsed on Friday, and Israel stepped up its bombing campaign on the besieged territory on Sunday. Ukraine said at least 2 people were killed and 7 others wounded by Russian shelling in the Kherson region, while air defenses downed 10 Russian drones overnight. Kherson was recaptured by Ukrainian forces in November last year, but has since faced relentless shelling by Russian forces from the opposite bank of the adjoining Dnipro River. Ukraine's armed forces said Russia also attacked several other locations in Ukraine overnight, using a total of 12 SAHIH drones, 10 of which were intercepted. It also said a guided Kh-59 missile failed to reach its target. Russia had used hundreds of Iranian-made self-detonating SAHIH drones to attack targets across Ukraine since launching its military operations in February 2022. Ukraine has boosted its air defense systems since last year, when Russia bombarded energy infrastructure in a bid to paralyze the country during winter. Separately, Russia accused Kiev's forces of striking several villages in the region of Belgorod, which borders Ukraine. Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov said drones and artillery fire were directed at several Russian villages without causing casualties or major damage. The Daesh group claimed responsibility for a deadly bombing at a Catholic mass in a university gymnasium in the south of Philippines that killed at least 4 people and injured 50 others. The blast in Marawi followed the killing of 11 combatants in a military operation on Friday in Maguindanao del Sur, some 200 kilometers away. The Daesh group, which wields influence in the country's south, said its members had detonated the bomb. Urging calm, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. posted on the social media platform X that he had instructed the National Police and armed forces to ensure the protection and safety of civilians and the security of affected and vulnerable communities. Military officials surveyed the gymnasium, which appeared intact except for burn marks in the centre where the explosion occurred. Police officers in Mindanao and the capital region were placed on high alert, and police checkpoints were tightened to prevent possible follow-up incidents. The Coast Guard directed its districts to intensify pre-departure inspections at ports. The university, meanwhile, said it was suspending classes until further notice. 9 people were killed and 15 injured after armed men raided Peru's Poderosa mine with explosives and took hostages. The Interior Ministry said police have taken control of the situation, with 7 people being arrested and weapons seized. The ministry said the attackers entered the mine shaft using explosive charges, violently confronting internal security personnel from the company and taking 4 people hostage. Police deployed 50 agents to the area, doubling the current police presence, and had identified the group responsible for the attack.
Hay 7 personas detenidas. Ellos están constituyendo una banda criminal denominada la Gota del Norte, que se dedicarían a la minería ilegal, a la extorsión, al sicariato.
In a statement, Poderosa said the tragic event is the result of a downward spiral of safety conditions in the zone, adding that organized crime has led to an exponential growth in illegal mining. The company also said previous attacks have already led to the death of 7 other workers and the destruction of 10 transmission towers. The attack comes a year after the impeachment and arrest of leftist former President Pedro Castillo, which sparked months of deadly protests that snarled activities at mines in the Andean country. A man wielding a steak knife killed 4 members of his extended family, including 2 children, at a home in the Queens borough of New York City early on Sunday before being shot dead by the police.
Kitchen steak knife.
The New York City Police Department said a girl called to report the incident in Queens' Far Rockaway neighborhood and said her cousin was killing her family members. The suspect set fire to a couch in the home's living room, forcing officers to wait for the arrival of the fire department before entering the house. The 38-year-old suspect stabbed 2 police officers who responded to the scene before one of the policemen shot him dead. The 2 injured officers were taken to a hospital and were expected to recover. The 4 people stabbed to death included a 12-year-old boy, an 11-year-old girl, a 44-year-old woman, and a man in his 30s. Police revealed that the 11-year-old was found in front of the house, while the other 3 were found inside bedrooms. A 5th person, a 61-year-old woman, was also stabbed and was in hospital in critical condition. The suspect, who lived in New York's Bronx borough, had previously been arrested over a domestic violence incident. Police have yet to determine the man's motive, but the rampage appeared to stem from a domestic dispute. Coming up, 11 hikers found dead after Mount Merapi erupts. Stay tuned.
Siren amaran awal banjir ialah sistem pengesan kenaikan aras air secara automatik. Sistem ini dilengkapi dengan pembesar suara akustik, sistem pemantauan bersepadu dan menggunakan sistem solar sepenuhnya. Selain itu, ia juga berupaya memberi arahan daripada Pusat Kawalan Program Ramalan dan Amaran Banjir Negara ke stesen siren dengan kaedah voice activation. Keupayaan bunyi siren ini boleh menjangkaui 1 hingga 2 kilometer bergantung kepada keadaan topografi setempat. Terdapat 2 jenis siren. Pertama, bunyi siren amaran.
Amaran. Air sungai telah melebihi aras amaran.
Semboyannya kedengaran apabila air sungai melepasi aras amaran dan penduduk diminta bersiap sedia untuk berpindah. Kedua, bunyi siren bahaya.
Bahaya. Air sungai telah melebihi aras bahaya.
Ia diaktifkan setelah air sungai melepasi aras bahaya dan penduduk diminta untuk berpindah serta-merta. Sistem siren amaran awal banjir memberi manfaat kepada masyarakat bersiap siaga menghadapi bencana banjir.
You're watching World Today. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ruling party routed the main opposition in key heartland states as votes were counted on Sunday, months before national elections in the world's most populous country. Now, the victories in 3 of the 5 states that voted in November further boost right-wing BJP or Bharatiya Janata Party and Modi, who is already the favourite to win his 3rd consecutive term in office next year. The Premier's party wrested control of Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan states from the opposition and retained Madhya Pradesh in a landslide despite a spirited challenge. The results are seen as yet another setback for the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty's scion Rahul Gandhi, 53, who led the opposition centre-left Indian National Congress Party's aggressive and personal campaign directly targeting Modi. Gandhi's father, grandmother and great-grandfather were prime ministers and political stalwarts who dominated the Indian political landscape for decades. India's once dominant political force, the Congress Party, lost the last 2 successive national elections in 2014 and 2019 in historic defeats to Modi and the BJP. Modi, who remains widely popular in his 10th year in office, flew across all poll-bound states in October and November to address tens of thousands of people in packed campaign rallies. With the final votes still being counted, India's Election Commission Sunday evening said that the BJP had won or was leading in 163 of Madhya Pradesh's 230 state assembly seats. In Rajasthan, the BJP had 115 wins and leads in the 199-member legislature, and the party was set to secure 54 of 90 seats in Chhattisgarh. Venezuelans began voting in a referendum that the government hopes will strengthen its century-old claim to the oil-rich Essequibo territory controlled by neighbouring Guyana. Voting started at 6 a.m. local time and was to end at 6 p.m. local time, with the results expected in the early hours of Monday morning. President Nicolas Maduro's government has said it is not seeking justification to invade or annex the territory, as some in Guyana fear. And regardless of the outcome of the vote by around 20 million eligible Venezuelans, little will change in the short term, as the people of Essequibo are not voting and the referendum is non-binding. But tensions have been rising since Guyana took bids in September for several offshore oil exploration blocks, and after a major new find was announced in October. Its petroleum reserves are similar to those of Kuwait, with the highest reserves per capita in the world. Venezuela has claimed the huge territory for decades, even as its 160,000 square kilometers represent more than 2/3 of Guyana, and its population of 125,000 is 1/5 of Guyana's total. Now, the United Arab Emirates and several charities at the UN Climate Summit offered $777 million in financing for eradicating neglected tropical diseases that are expected to worsen as temperatures climb. COP28 President Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber said climate-related factors have become one of the greatest threats to human health in the 21st century. The pledges made as the COP28 summit focused on climate-related health risks included $100 million from the UAE and $100 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Others to announce funds for climate-related health issues included Belgium, Germany, and the U.S. Agency for International Development. The World Bank also launched a program to explore possible support measures for public health in developing countries where climate-related health risks are especially high. The burden of tropical diseases will worsen as the world warms, along with other climate-driven health threats including malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress. More than 120 countries have also signed a COP28 declaration acknowledging their responsibility to keep people safe amid global warming. The declaration, however, made no mention of fossil fuels, the main source of climate warming emissions, which the Global Climate and Health Alliance called a glaring omission. Now, tens of thousands of protesters marched in Brussels to demand urgent action against climate change as world leaders gathered for Crunch COP28 talks in the United Arab Emirates. Now, the demonstration was called by the Belgian Climate Coalition in an attempt to integrate climate issues into the Belgian presidency of the European Union, which begins in a few weeks' time. The crowd braved low temperatures in the Belgian capital to the sound of drums and other musical entertainment following a call by the Climate Coalition, which brings together 90 civil society organizations. Organizers said 25,000 people attended, while police estimated their number at 20,000. Many of the demonstrators sent messages to political leaders regarding their demands on climate change.
Concrétiser. Donc on est aussi dans la rue avec des revendications très concrètes pour qu'on accélère l'isolation des logements, qu'on multiplie les pistes cyclables, qu'on réinvestisse dans les transports en commun, etc. On ne peut plus se permettre le luxe aujourd'hui de choisir un niveau de pouvoir et encore moins d'agir uniquement sur base de l'action individuelle.
At least 11 hikers have been found dead, while 3 others were rescued by search teams after a volcano erupted in western Indonesia. Mount Merapi on the island of Sumatra, with a peak of 2,891 meters, erupted on Sunday, sending a tower of ash 3,000 meters into the sky. The official said the 3 survivors were found near the crater and their condition was weak and some had burns. There were a total of 75 hikers on the mountain that checked in since Saturday, who rescue workers were trying to account for. 12 were still missing and 49 had descended, some of whom had been taken to hospital. West Sumatra's Natural Resources Conservation Agency said rescue teams were working through the night to help bring mountaineers down to safety. Merapi is on the 2nd alert level of Indonesia's 4-step system, and authorities have imposed a 3-kilometer exclusion zone around its crater. Communities around the Merapi volcano and tourists have also been stopped from hiking up the mountain. The Indonesian archipelago sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the meeting of continental plates cause high volcanic and seismic activity. The Southeast Asian country has nearly 130 active volcanoes. Meanwhile, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck off the coast of the southern Philippines early Monday, the latest in a slew of strong quakes, all concentrated in the same area. The quake hit just before 4 a.m. local time at a depth of 30 kilometers, some 72 kilometers northeast of Hinatuan municipality on Mindanao Island. That followed a magnitude 6.6 earthquake on Sunday and a deadly magnitude 7.6 quake on Saturday in the same region, which had briefly triggered a tsunami alert. Authorities said at least 2 people were killed and several were injured after Saturday's quake. It was followed by a series of aftershocks of magnitudes exceeding 6 through Sunday. The recent temblors come as 2 weeks after a 6.7 magnitude quake hit Mindanao, killing at least 9 people, shaking buildings and causing parts of a shopping mall ceiling to collapse. Earthquakes are a daily occurrence in the Philippines, which sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic and volcanic activity that stretches from Japan through Southeast Asia and across the Pacific Basin. At least 47 people were killed and 85 others injured in landslides caused by flooding in northern Tanzania. District Commissioner Janeth Mayanya said heavy rain on Saturday hit the town of Katesh, some 300 kilometers north of the capital Dodoma, with many roads in the area being blocked by mud, water and dislodged trees and stones. Queen Sendiga, regional commissioner in the Manyara area of northern Tanzania, warned that the death toll was likely to increase. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan in Dubai for the COP28 climate conference sent her condolences and said she had ordered the deployment of more government efforts to rescue people. After experiencing an unprecedented drought, East Africa has been hit for weeks by torrential rain and flooding linked to the El Niño weather phenomenon. The downpours have displaced more than 1 million people in Somalia and left hundreds dead. El Niño is a naturally occurring weather pattern that originates in the Pacific Ocean and drives increased heat worldwide, bringing drought to some areas and heavy rains elsewhere. Scientists expect the worst effects of the current El Niño to be felt at the end of 2023 and into next year. Champions Man City held to draw by Tottenham late goal. That and more in our sports segment. Kicking off our sports segment today, Manchester City were stunned by a depleted Tottenham as Dejan Kulusevski's 90th minute equaliser earned Spurs a thrilling 3-3 draw at the Etihad this morning. Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou insisted he will not relent from his philosophy of relentless attacking football despite facing the might of City with a mounting injury crisis, and earned his reward. Spurs captain Son Heung-min scored at both ends inside the opening 10 minutes. Phil Foden put City in front before half-time. However, Giovanni Lo Celso scored the leveller 20 minutes from time. Jack Grealish restored the home side's lead once more, only for Kulusevski's header to ensure City have now dropped points in 5 of their last 8 league games. Pep Guardiola's side were furious deep in stoppage time when Grealish was through on goal, but play was stopped for a foul on Erling Haaland during the build-up. The English and European champions dropped to third on the table, 3 points behind leaders Arsenal. A point lifts Tottenham to fifth and snaps a run of 3 consecutive defeats. Meanwhile, Liverpool scored 2 late goals a minute apart, including Trent Alexander-Arnold's winner in the 88th minute in their breathless 4-3 victory over Fulham. Alexander-Arnold set Liverpool on their way in the 20th minute when his brilliant free kick clipped the underside of the crossbar and went in off Fulham keeper Bernd Leno for an own goal. Harry Wilson levelled before Alexis McAllister produced a moment of magic to restore the home side's lead, unleashing a rising drive that found the top corner for his first Liverpool goal. But Fulham equalised through Kenny Tett before half-time, and the London side looked set for a sensational victory when substitute De Cordova-Reid nodded home their third with 10 minutes of normal time to go. However, Liverpool were not finished as Mohamed Salah set up Endo, who found the net from the edge of the box, and Alexander-Arnold drove the ball home a minute later, sparking wild scenes at Anfield. Liverpool are now in second place, 2 points adrift of leaders Arsenal. And in other news, Arsenal, 14-time winner of the FA Cup, will host 8 times champion Liverpool in a blockbuster third-round clash in January. Now, the Premier League leaders Arsenal will face title rivals Liverpool twice in quick succession, with the two sides also meeting in a league clash on the 23rd December, days before their FA Cup fixture. The Tyne-Wear Derby is arguably the most exciting fixture of the third round, and with both sides currently matched on 53 wins apiece in the historic fixture, the game will carry added meaning for both sets of supporters. Holders Manchester City face Huddersfield Town, while last season's losing finalists Manchester United take on 2013 champions Wigan Athletic. The third round is the point where Premier League and Championship second-tier clubs enter the competition, and the matches will be played from the 5th to the 8th of January. And in tennis, Hamad Medjedovic capped his breakthrough season by lifting his next-gen ATP Finals trophy, where he recovered from squandering 2 match points in the 4th set against Arthur Phil to win the first 5-set final in tournament history. The Serbian took large cuts at the ball, won 88% of points on his first delivery and converted his 3rd match point to fire past the 19-year-old Frenchman 3-4, 4-1, 4-2, 3-4, 4-1 after 2 hours and 11 minutes. Medjedovic did not lose a match, en route to becoming the first Serbian to triumph at the tournament, taking home a tournament record of $514,000 in prize money. At number 110 in the ATP rankings, the 20-year-old is the lowest-ranked champion in tournament history, while he is the 6th next-gen ATP Finals titleist, joining top 10 stars Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner and Stefanos Tsitsipas. The next-gen ATP Finals are the season-ending event for the top-ranked male players 21 and under. The event format calls for best-of-5 play, with 4 games winning the set. Ethiopia's Sisay Lema clocked the 4th fastest time ever in winning a stacked Valencia marathon on Sunday. Now, the 32-year-old timed 2 hours, 1 minute, 48 seconds to beat the course record set last year by none other than Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum, who smashed the world record earlier this year in Chicago. Only Kiptum, Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge, Berlin 2022, and Ethiopia's Kenenisa Bekele, Berlin 2019, have gone faster than Lema. Lema won in Valencia ahead of Kenya's Alexander Mutiso and Ethiopian Dawit Walde, while Bekele, 41, came in 4th in a Masters record of 2 hours, 4 minutes and 19 seconds. Uganda's 3-time world 10,000-meter champion Joshua Cheptegei, the world record holder in both the 5,000 and the 10,000 meters, was making his debut in the marathon, but faded and finished well off the pace in 2 hours, 8 minutes, 59 seconds. There was double joy for Ethiopia as Worknesh Degefa won the women's race ahead of compatriots Almaz Ayana and Hiwot Gebrekidan.
76 minit tanpa henti. 76 minutes non-stop. Transparent and concise. Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam. Malaysia Tonight, 8:30 p.m.
Rakyat Malaysia memang hebat kerana tegas pertahankan hak Palestin. Memang kita jauh dari dunia Arab. Kita jauh dari dunia Palestin. Kita jauh dari Gaza. Tetapi setiap detik berlaku menyentuh hati nurani kita. Kerana apa? Karena kita tahu dan faham arti manusiawi, arti ihsan, arti kemanusiaan, dan lebih penting, arti keadilan melawan kezaliman Israel.
And with that, we reach the end of today's bulletin. In our top story today, Daesh group claims responsibility for deadly bombing in the Philippines. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM for more news. Till then, I'm Mohana Priya. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for your company.